I'm Marcus Chavez, Communications Director for the Philanthropy Roundtable. Today I'm joined by Thomas Meyer, Program Manager for Veteran Services. He's going to take a few minutes to discuss some of the work that he's doing here at the Roundtable. Thomas, thanks for taking a few minutes here.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to ask you a question about this newest generation of veterans. Can you tell us what that looks like?
Sure. So the veterans population overall in the United States is about 22 million. The proportion of that served after 9/11, post 9/11 veterans, as we obviously call them, is much smaller right now. It's about 3 million folks. It'll grow to be about 6 million at its max. But what differentiates this population of veterans from any other that's served before and is still living today is that not only have they been at war for a long time, but kind of more fundamentally, they chose to serve. They're part of the all-volunteer force that came in after the end of the Vietnam War. What that means is that they were folks who stood up and said, I don't have to do this, but I want to serve my country in this way. And in sort of contradiction to a lot of the stereotypes we have about military service, it's an option for people who can't do anything else in life. It's kind of where you go if you wash out of other careers. Those are actually not true at all. If you look at the criminal rates of veterans who served in post 9/11 era, they're lower than that of the sort of average citizen. If you look at education rates, they are higher. They actually graduate high school at a much higher rate than civilians do. And they also go to some college more than civilians do. Their intellectual aptitude and their health are both higher than civilians, so it's really not accurate to think of this as a population that's sort of subpar in any way. Both sort of morally they stepped up and did something for their country, but they are also in many sort of important kind of human capital ways outperform their peers.
Yeah, and that's actually something you've written about in your guidebook, Serving Those Who Serve, that was published by the Roundtable last year. You also explained that there are some well-meaning charities or even government programs that actually inadvertently hinder that potential, that human capital. Could you further explain a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So it would be a lie to say that folks came back from war unchanged. In a lot of cases, there are sort of positive and negative aspects of being deployed to war and serving in the military. Some of these have been, very, very sort of catastrophic injuries. The folks who have severe burns, who have multiple amputations, who have severe spinal cord damage, brain damage, those folks are truly, truly injured. But they're also a subset of the population that's much smaller than we sort of see portrayed in kind of media accounts of veterans. The average veteran is sort of much closer to an individual who's making several life transitions at once. The folks who are coming out of the military are, at the same time, they're leaving a community, they're changing jobs, they're moving oftentimes geographically from their sort of prior station. So what you have is kind of a portrayal of veterans as somehow broken by their service at war, when really it's a population that for the most part is just going through some major life transitions. And so what we find is that veterans who are given access to charities that help them make those transitions successfully tend to do better than veterans who are exposed to charities that sort of treat them as though they are permanently broken.
So what is the solution then to help these veterans going through these transitions?
Well, for the folks who really are severely injured, that sort of small subset at the kind of the tail end of the distribution, long-term support is absolutely necessary. And we've seen over the past few years some programs developed to really sort of aid in that long-term care. But for the big kind of bulk of the veterans population, we need to focus on sort of providing pathways to independence and self-sufficiency. That's really sort of the guiding light that private donors should be looking at when they try to address sort of the needs of veterans, asking, will this in the end help someone transition successfully into a fulfilling, dignified life, or will it provide them with some gift or asset or cash transfer without really an eye towards a long-term sort of self-sufficiency?
So is that what you have going on here at the Philanthropy Roundtable, or what are some of the things you've got going on in the works here?
Absolutely. So what we're looking at now is working with donors who are interested in supporting the veteran population, but who want to do it in a way that encourages self-sufficiency and really takes these folks who are fundamentally, an asset to our communities, to our economy, and transition them from using those skills and talents in the military to applying them to one of the many, many sort of valuable pursuits we have in civilian life.
So if there are any philanthropists or charities that want to get involved with some of these programs, what would you suggest that they do or that they look out for?
I would suggest that they sort of take a long-term look at what types of change they want to create in the veteran population. And to do it within the sort of the donor intent and the giving strategies they've already laid out. So instead of thinking about the veteran population as something that needs support, needs to be taken care of long term, think of this as a very talented set of people who is moving through a major life transition, and think about ways in which you can ensure that that transition goes well versus going poorly. In the end, what they really want to be asking themselves as donors is, do my investments create dignity and self-sufficiency and independence, or do they treat someone like they're broken?
All right, well, thank you for taking a few minutes to discuss these issues, and I look forward to having future discussions about these topics as well.
Thanks.